What's up, collectors? Welcome back to Films by Color. My name is DJ, and I'm very excited to talk to you today about some brand new limited edition boutique releases that I have here from the good folks over at Crocodile. They sent me over all three of their brand new limited edition releases that they just put out. I've watched all the films, and I'm going to discuss them here in just a minute. But before I do, I want to talk about the label itself and their new upgraded packaging that they've just started putting out. If you're not familiar with Crocodile, I've talked about them quite a bit here on the channel. They are my absolute favorite label to talk about right now. They are incredible. They're killing it over there, and I'm loving everything they're putting out. They are a newer boutique Blu-ray label. They're one of the smaller labels right now, but they are growing fast. They're putting out tons of releases, and every one of their releases are amazing. They put out some of the most unique, some of the most underserved genres in the boutique Blu-ray space. Nobody else is putting out what Crocodile is putting out. And they've just completely revamped their entire line. And I can't wait to show you all the ins and outs of the new releases that they're putting out, the new packaging style. Before, they were distributing through Vinegar Syndrome. So their releases would look just like any other Vincent partner label. I've got a couple older examples here of Solomon King and Zero Grad, two earlier Crocodile titles. They would do limited runs on these, and then after these sold out, then they would print standard editions, and you could pick those up. Those would stay in print, but the limited editions came with these beautiful slip covers on top, and then underneath you would get a nice booklet inside, just a small, thin little booklet, kind of like a pamphlet, just a few pages in there. These were great. I had no problems with these. I absolutely love these. I'm trying to collect a complete collection of these original 22 films that they put out. I have 20. I'm just 2 away, so I got to pick up those last 2, but I've almost got a complete set. But as great as those were, the new packaging is even better. These look incredible. I'm going to show you the first one here. This is spine number 27, Trapped Ashes. So these are nice, thick, chunky, bulky box sets, look great on the shelf, take up plenty of shelf space, plenty of shelf real estate, big bold title on the side, and this is a hard slip box, kind of similar to what you would see from Arrow Video or Eureka Masters of Cinema. These look incredible. And then you've got more goodies inside. First of all, you've got a Skenavo case, a clear boutique luxury looking case, the exact same cases that Criterion uses, Radiance, some of the other UK boutique labels. These look super nice, wonderful artwork on there. And then you've got your discs inside like that. And then the best part for me is this incredible book. This is a bound book. This is not just a little pamphlet. This is a 60-page book with, look at all the contents in there. You've got multiple essays, articles, interviews, all kinds of supplements in there, which I love. This is great. I absolutely love this kind of stuff. I love to deep dive into the background of the film after I watch it, and I'm very thankful for it with these releases, because these releases were wild, especially this one. I'm going to talk about this one in just a second here, but I love these releases. I love how much care they're putting into these. They've really amped up the collectability of these, and they're still decent prices. They're not even bad at all. The prices are great. They are still, I think they're on sale right now for $33.99, which is cheaper than list price for most boutique releases, and all the bang you get for your buck. So there's a little update about the new packaging style. I will go into more detail on each one as I talk about each film, but wanted to do a little preamble there at the beginning with all the new updates that they've been making lately. But let's go ahead and jump into the films. All right, guys, we're gonna start here with Trapped Ashes, which is spine number 27. Then we'll go to 28 and 29. And this is actually the order I watched the films in too, so it works out perfectly. Trapped Ashes is a wild film. This is absolutely bonkers. I was excited about this. I heard this was coming out. It is an anthology horror film that is a throwback, sort of an homage to Amicus Productions, which admittedly I am underqualified to talk about. I am not a huge horror guy. I'm not up on my horror knowledge, especially some of the more obscure stuff that this is referencing and pulling from. So I'm sure if you are a big fan of that stuff, you're gonna get a lot more out of this than I did. But even I, as a very, very casual, I wouldn't even say casual horror fan, I still really, really enjoyed this. There's lots of other things that I do love in this. I actually ended up watching this with a friend of mine. He had left his bag at my house and he was swinging by to pick it up. He ended up staying and watching this with me. And I'm so glad he did, because this is absolutely one of those movies that's so much more fun to watch with friends. So like I said, this is an homage to some of the classic horror anthologies from Amicus Productions, like Tales of the Crypt or Vault of Horror, all that kind of stuff. And it is a lot of fun, but it pushes things way further than those, obviously, because this comes out 2006, I believe, early 2000s this is coming out. So it's able to push the boundaries much further in the surreal, disturbing, grotesque, and specifically erotic departments. All 4 of the little vignettes in this film are very specifically about sex. Completely different kinds of stories. We've got some sci-fi horror, some body horror. We've got some supernatural ghost stories. One of the stories actually takes place in Japan. We've got a very disturbing, like, medical horror story in the last short, the last little vignette, which I actually think might have been my favorite. It was fascinating. All 5 of these, by the way, directed by some big names in horror. These are big guns. You've got Joe Dante from Gremlins, you got Ken Russell, you got Sean S. Cunningham from Friday the 13th. These are big names in horror, all coming together to shoot their own vignettes. They all come together pretty well stylistically. I'm a big fan of anthology films. I wish we got more vignette films. But after reading more about this, I totally understand why it doesn't happen. It's almost impossible that this came together as well as it did. You've got to find 5 different directors that are willing to work all at the same time. You've got to have each one find their own short that they're excited about. The scheduling just seemed like a nightmare. This is a perfect time capsule of this period, not only of the early 2000s with all the fashion and the language and the graphic design and the title sequences, all of it really took me back to the early 2000s, but also that another time capsule of the Amicus Productions time period back then that it's aping. This is a perfect movie to watch around Halloween time, have on in the background during a Halloween party or something like that. I kind of wish it had come out a month earlier. If this had come out in October, it would have been perfect to watch around Halloween. It's not actually a haunted house film. I kind of got the impression from this artwork that it's a haunted house film. There is a house that they're all trapped in, but that's just the framework. I'll give you a quick synopsis, I guess. I haven't even done that yet. I'm kind of all over the place. Sorry, I'm excited. So there is a stand-in for a Universal Studios backlot tour that all of these characters are on. They're riding through the tour, looking at all the different Hollywood sites. They're all in the industry. They're all writers or actors, so there's a meta element to it. And they go up to this house, which is supposed to be like a stand-in for one of these iconic houses from Amicus Productions. So the tour guide takes them into this famous house so they can look around and get a better look. Then they get trapped in the house, and then the only way for them to get out is to tell their like deepest, darkest stories. This is perfect horror for me. I like supernatural horror. I think the purest form of horror stories is the ghost story. Back when we were oral cultures and we would just tell these scary stories around the campfire, this kind of has that feel to it. Each character tells their own story. There's some narration. Even though it didn't come out in October, there is actually some crossover with November, because I've been doing a lot of noir movies this month for Noirvember, and this kind of fits that mold a little bit. There's some noirish elements in it, especially one of the stories that has narration going all the way through it. There's also just kind of this prevailing bleakness around love and relationships with people that goes through the whole thing, which also feels very noirish. There's a lot to love about this movie. It may not be, it's definitely not going to be for everyone. I don't even want to sugarcoat it. It might not be for you, but if it is for you, I think it's going to hit pretty hard. There's some great things in there, especially if you're a big horror fan. You'll probably pick up on a lot more of the references than I did, but even I had a good time with this one. Like I said, watch it with some friends. I'll go ahead and open this up for you so you can see the discs. This is actually a 4K release. Normally, Deaf Crocodile only does Blu-ray releases, usually, but this has a Blu-ray and it also has a 4K disc. That's what I watched it on, of course. Looks great. The disc looks incredible. I really liked the restoration on there. There's also quite a bit of supplements on here. You've got director's cuts of the vignettes, so longer versions of some of the stories, and you've got some interviews with the writer of the film, Dennis Bartok. So Dennis Bartok wrote this film. He is actually one of the co-founders of the whole label of Deaf Crocodile. So he's very involved in this release, and this is kind of a special release for the label because it's his film. So tons of special features on there, both legacy features and new updated features just for this release. And then we've got the booklet as well, 60-page booklet. I was out of town on vacation last week, so I had a little bit more free time. I was able to read through this entire book, and I gotta say, all of it was great, but this specific essay by Walter Chaw, the first essay in here, is incredible. I need to read more of this guy's stuff. He apparently writes for a lot of different publications, including Criterion, so I may have read something by him before, but it was excellent. It was really good. There's also an essay by Dennis Bartok, the writer, Memories of Trapped Ashes. And then there's a really cool, very long article in here that was published at the time when the film was coming out, and they got permission to republish that in here, as well as some other interviews. So this is chock full of information, and I'm very thankful I had this because it really enhanced my experience with the film, more so than just watching the film by itself. And it's also the first Dead Crocodile film. Now, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that logo on there, but it's slightly different than the normal Deaf Crocodile logo. It's a zombie crocodile, and it's called their Dead Crocodile line. I think the plan is to continue this line, and this is gonna be specific for their horror films. I'm excited to see where the rest of this line goes. Hopefully they can put some more of those out in the near future, but Trapped Ashes was a great first installment in that line. I like the legacy aspect, the connection with the Deaf Crocodile label. What a wild film, what an absolutely crazy film, and I'm so glad that I checked it out. Then we're gonna go in a completely different direction with the next film, Tamala 2010, A Punk Cat in Space. This is an independent Japanese anime film from 2002, I believe, early 2000s. So it does have some things in common with Trapped Ashes. It's an anime film, which I didn't mention. Trapped Ashes actually has an anime sequence in one of the vignettes. So very popular, obviously, in the early 2000s. This was a big counterculture, anti-consumerist, anti-capitalist movie from 2000, a punk movie through and through. This is even more bonkers than the last one. This was crazy. Absolutely insane. This is why I love Deaf Crocodile. Even when the films don't necessarily fit into my personal tastes or sensibilities, I always learn so much for the releases, and I can always say I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like Tamala 2010. This is a crude, vulgar, very adult film about a very cute main character who is based on Hello Kitty and Astro Boy and all of those characters from kawaii culture. Now, this is another area where I'm completely out of my depth. I'm not an anime fan. I'm not up on the history of this stuff, but I did read a few essays in here, watched some of the supplements. There's a great video essay on here that I liked a lot, learned a ton, and it's fascinating. So kawaii culture is this big thing in Japan where, and it's come over here into the States obviously as well too, with the big cute characters, just selling characters on this cuteness overload where they got the big giant eyes and they're just massive merchandising deals, this hyper consumerism, trying to sell as much merchandise as possible just on these cute little figures where most of the people don't even know what the character is about. This is commenting on all of that. This is critiquing all of that. This is pushing back a punk film that is very anti-consumerism and anti-kawaii culture. And it's fascinating. Even on its own as a film without all that stuff, even the first time I watched it, I didn't have any of that background when I was watching it. The animation itself is incredible. Apparently this is made and produced and written by a duo of musicians slash graphic designers slash just artists in general out of Japan. And they worked with one single animator for the 2D stuff, and he didn't even know what was coming next. They would just write him a scene, send it to him, he would animate it. Next scene, animate it. Linear, they did the whole film that way, which is crazy. There's also a lot of different styles of animation mixed in here. The two main ones are this 2D animation style that I just mentioned. It's black and white, very flat, very cute. Like I said, just think Hello Kitty. And then you've also got this very cutting edge at the time, 2002, 3D animation style that is cutting through the films for different reasons. Different segments have different animation styles. And it's just this crazy film about a cat who is an orphan. She's a punk cat in every sense of the word. She hates her mother. She hates any kind of establishment. She does whatever she wants. There is this kind of evil corporation that's running everything called Caddy & Co. You find out later in the film that they are this evil cult that's been around for thousands of years. This takes place in the future. Well, at the time, 2010. It goes even further into the future as well. This is a real hard sci-fi epic. It gets really crazy and non sequitur and meandery, and it's really hard to keep up with. But luckily, there is some kind of forced exposition towards the end that, though a little clunky, I was actually grateful for because it helps explain what the heck's going on, because I was lost for most of this film. It's very hard to keep up with on a first time through. Definitely need another watch for this one. But there's this ancient cult that has now transitioned into this giant mega corporation on Cat Earth that they put out, I think, 97% of the whole world's GDP. So they're putting out every product on this earth. Pretty much everything comes through Caddy & Co. And Tamala is basically their spokesperson, their mascot. They use her to sell everything. She is this immortal being who keeps dying and coming back to life, and they keep using her. So it's basically a fable about capitalism. So it's these ideas actually brought to life literally through this crazy bonkers story. There's all kinds of commentary in here that you could pull out. I'm not going to go into all of it. I've probably already given away too much. Sorry if you think I've spoiled too much, but this film is really hard to talk about without giving a little bit of background. There are even some noir elements in here. She's always smoking a cigarette. She's always walking around narrating what she's doing, and she's always just kicking people in the face without asking any questions. She's crazy. Tamala is absolutely nuts. This booklet is fascinating. I've only read one of the essays in here. I've read half this book. Haven't had a chance to read the second part yet. Here's the fascinating scene where they find this ancient fresco painting. That's a real painting, which looked incredible. That looked like something out of a Pasolini movie. There's a clear reference to The Shining from Stanley Kubrick. These guys are obviously big film fans, so if you're a big cinephile, you will get a lot of references in here. They reference a lot of classic films, especially like sci-fi noir films like Blade Runner, Cowboy Bebop, The Matrix, Metropolis is referenced in here as well. So there's a ton of fun stuff in there for that. This is one of those films you just gotta watch. I can't even explain it to you. It's one that I cannot tell you if it'll be for you or not. You kind of just have to decide for yourself, do some research, read up on it. You can't spoil it. I don't think you can spoil the experience. I'll go ahead and open up the case for you. This is just a Blu-ray release, no 4K on this one. There's the artwork in there. Like I said, great supplements on here as well. We've got 2 original Tamala short films by the same creators that were released after this in 2007. And then we've got a new video interview with the creators. And then we've got a new commentary track and the video essay that I mentioned earlier called Doesn't She Ever Die, which is fascinating. Highly recommend that essay. That helped me understand the film a lot more than I did just on first time watch. But this was a lot of fun. Another one that has grown on me the more I read about it and the more I think about it. Like I said, you're kind of thrown in the deep end right off the bat the first time you pop it in. But I do recommend checking out some of those. And that's why I love these limited editions, because you get so much more about the film with that booklet and those supplements. Tamala 2010. Not going to forget this one anytime soon. Another just absolutely crazy film. And we've still got one more to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump into the Outcasts. All right, here it is, the Outcasts. This is the one of the 3 that I was most excited to check out. Like I said, I had to stretch myself a little bit for the other 2 because they weren't in genres that I immediately gravitate towards, but this one absolutely is. This is an Irish folklore, Irish folk horror story from 1982. I just watched this last night, so I haven't had as much time to sit with it as the other 2, but this blew me away. This was absolutely the find of this video, but maybe one of my favorite finds of the year. This was incredible. I loved this. I watched it last night. Like, it was like after midnight, but I was glued to the screen the entire time. I was never tired. It was fascinating. It's so good. It is a quintessential Irish movie. Like right off the bat, as soon as the Irish score kicked in, I was like, yes, I'm totally in. I'm all in on this one. It's got all the staples of a classic Irish film. You've got thick, heavy accents. You've got beautiful landscapes, Irish moors, swamps, beautiful scenery everywhere you look. You've got characters drinking. You've got characters singing, making music together. You got a priest, which you absolutely have to have in every Irish film. And you've got a donkey, which is absolutely essential. Gotta have a donkey in there. I love this film. I loved everything about how it looks, the atmosphere, the visuals. It was actually shot in 16mm, which is very cool. I don't think I've ever seen anything shot in 16mm. A very, very low budget film at the time, but it looks incredible. I actually love the way it looks. I think it adds perfectly to the atmosphere. I actually pulled down some films off the shelf that came to mind while I was watching this that reminded me of this film. First one, Banshees of Inisherin. One of my favorite films of all time. Just the way it's shot, the cinematography, and the dour, bleak mood of the entire film. I was reminded of Banshees the entire time I was watching this. Also, Bela Tarr. This felt like a Bela Tarr film, again, with how bleak it gets and how muddy and just wet and damp everything is. There's also like an air of mystery throughout the whole film that really reminded me of Picnic at Hanging Rock. It's also a Victorian era film. This is pre-famine Ireland, so it felt very much like this film. There's lots of surreal dream-like shots, actually in dreams in this film, where you're kind of looking up at weird angles at nature and all of the surrounding rock formations, which really reminded me of Picnic at Hanging Rock. Also, you got a female protagonist. Same thing with these next two. There's also some fairy tale flourishes in this film. Like I said, it's based on folklore, so I was really reminded of Donkey Skin. Themes in here about coming of age and all these sexual awakening stuff going on in Donkey Skin. And also, hand in hand with that goes Valerie and her Week of Wonders, all about the same exact stuff. These actually, I think, would make a wonderful double feature because these are very, very similar in tone and themes and just absolute weirdness. Fun, bizarre, supernatural weirdness. Like I said, Deaf Crocodile puts out some weird, unique movies, and I'm loving it, especially this one. I really had a good time watching this one. Another film that this reminds me of is Robert Eggers' The Witch. Very similar to The Witch. If you like The Witch, you'll probably like this too. I actually think this does what he's trying to do in that film quite a bit better. I like this quite a bit more than I liked The Witch. Starts out very similar, starts out very naturalistic, very realistic in the beginning, and then slowly like dips into the supernatural and the surreal as it goes along, gets more into the horror genre a little bit. It even has a goat right here on the back. Look at that. That looks like it could be art for The Witch. It's great. This is a really, really cool, unique film. Coming of age story. The main character is kind of a weird, it's right there in the title, Outcasts. She is very quiet. She doesn't get along with anybody. She gets bullied all the time. Everyone thinks she's just a weirdo in the village. And then when things start going south in the village, when people start getting sick, they start blaming her. Everybody's very superstitious in this time period, at least in this film. And they got to have someone to blame their misfortune and their troubles and their struggles on. So she is the scapegoat. She takes all the brunt of that, which is unfortunate because she is a lovely character. She's wonderful. She brings the whole film together. She's fascinating in this. I love her as a character. I think the performance is excellent. And it's heartbreaking to see her get treated this way, but it's very satisfying as she has this coming of age story, this sexual awakening, finding herself. It's great. I loved everything about it. Everything works together. The music, the acting, the cinematography works well. It's a perfect winter film. It's perfect for this month. Everything's shot in winter. You can see the cold breath coming out of people's mouths in every scene. You can feel the cold on the screen. It's great. Really had a great time with this one. Perfect winter film and a perfect fairy tale film, folklore. If you guys know me, that's a big genre that I always like to dabble in. And I feel like Irish films, like Czech films, which I also really love, really lend themselves to this fairy tale kind of storytelling. Their stories already have this kind of mythic quality, these folk tales, these coming of age stories. I watched quite a few Irish films earlier this year and they all kind of feel like that. They all kind of feel like they're about outsiders and outcasts and how they have to find their place in the world. And they're all drinking and making music together. It already feels straight out of a fantasy novel and it's great. I loved it so much. I really enjoyed this. But what's really great about it is the care that's taken with the characters. Usually in stories like this about witchcraft, about someone being accused of a witch, I feel like the antagonists are usually very simple, very one note. But I feel like in this story, they're very sympathetic, very compelling. I feel like they're just afraid. They're just scared. And they need something, like I said, to blame their struggles on and their troubles on and their hardship because life is just hard. And it's easier to have something to blame it on than to just accept that life is terrible. This is actually a theme that I've been thinking about a lot lately in our current climate where we're all at each other's throats and all just blaming other people for everything. I think this holds up great. Perfect watch in 2024. Loved this. I'm definitely going to be going back to this in the future quite a bit. Unfortunately, this is the one of the three that came a little bit damaged. I don't know if it fell off a shelf somewhere or something in the warehouse, but my box is smashed in. It looks like it hit that, and then the the artwork underneath is a little bit ripped on the spine, but no biggie. It's all good. It looks fine on the shelf this way and from the front. So that's really all that matters. We've got a booklet in here. Again, another 60-page booklet with 2 essays and notes on the restoration. See if I can get some of this beautiful, look at that cinematography. Oh man. And there is an evil goat. An evil ghost goat. Oh, it's great. This was fantastic. I highly recommend this. This was a little known gem. This is what Deaf Crocodile is known for. They put out those the films that you've never heard of. I actually got a comment the other day. It was like, the packaging is really good, but they always put out movies that no one's ever heard of. Yes, and that's why I love them. I love that I learn something every time I watch one of their releases, and I love expanding my horizons a little bit and getting out of my comfort zone and watching some things that don't necessarily fit into my wheelhouse. That's just me. If that sounds like something interesting to you, then I highly recommend you go over to Deaf Crocodile's website or Diabolic DVD and pick those up. So thank you so much, Deaf Crocodile, for sending those my way. I really enjoyed going through all 3 of those, and I'm looking forward to all the new releases that you have coming out in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the comments down below. If you have any other questions about these releases, I'll do my best to answer them down there. Please, if you would, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the share button. All of that goes a long way to help get these videos out to more people so we can spread the love about physical media and collecting here on YouTube. But until next time, keep collecting, and I'll be back with another one real soon.